if you've seen any of my videos, you've probably seen this guitar, and you'll see way more about it. This is my #1 guitar. It's time for a little bit of a change. In fact, a change that for months and months was literally hiding behind our backs. Let me just... Indeed, this is my latest guitar, my custom-made and custom-spec'd guitar by Silva Guitars. I will be making a whole dedicated video on it, more in the style of a demo/review, so be on the lookout for that. But this isn't really your normal random new guitar day. This has been years in the making of me looking for a specific guitar that would fulfill my needs as a composer and had the tools for me to experiment with new sounds and new stuff. If you go out there into guitar land, you can't really find a 7-string guitar out there, some more unusual specs like a 25.5-inch scale length with single coil pickups, the modified wiring and control layout, a semi-hollow/thin line body construction, a rosewood neck, and a one-piece alder body with a little tummy cut, a little bit of an arm contour, and even though it is subjective, the aesthetics. This guitar is clearly a blend between more modern features and more old-school features and designs, which on one hand, in case you didn't notice, also is my outfit. And even though it is a beautiful guitar, and I think all of us guitar players really appreciate to have a new instrument, especially one that we got to design ourselves, this guitar is a tool. It serves a purpose. I have a couple of guitars already, and all of them really serve a purpose, but most of the times I could really just do it with this one. Not only when it comes to sounds and tones, but just overall feel, this is the guitar for me. But I've been wanting a 7-string guitar because I started out as a bass player, and in bass playing world, even though it is very much a subjective and a gig-based thing, there are a lot of bass players that just moved on to a 5-string to just be more versatile and always have access to those low notes. That extended range, which on one hand is just like 5 extra notes, can actually make a big difference, and is something that I've been wanting to try out with this new style of guitar playing that I've been practicing over the years. That involves doing some more of those chordal arrangements along with the melodies rather than doing one track with the chords and one track with the melody. Yes, I am a fan of metal music and have released a bunch of songs in the symphonic, progressive, instrumental rock music genre, and have also spiced it up with some metally bits here and there, so don't worry, this guitar is going to show off in the chug test. Spoiler alert, it really does. But to be honest, I can't really begin to express how guitar players like Yamandu Costa have been a huge influence on me for the past couple of years, and how I'm really excited to just experiment with new things and try off this new style of guitar playing that I really couldn't do, at least in this way, with my old and trusted, never going to get rid of it, guitar. And an example of that would be my latest release song, Harkening Back To Us, which if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at, which wasn't really meant to be in the 3rd volume of Brad Baker Demos. In fact, it is the last song of Brad Baker Demos Volume 3, but I kind of wanted to treat you guys with a little song with it, and in fact, a song that kind of blends the two genres, the more instrumental, progressive, symphonic rock songs that have been featured on Brad Baker Demos so far, with a little tease for the new type of music that I've been wanting to work on for so many years and have been starting to work on. But unlike with my other songs, where they feature a lot of different guitars in there, depending on what sort of tones I was looking for, Harkening Back To Us features only this guitar. So everything you hear on that track is this guitar going through the same sounds and presets as the latest released songs. And while I actively told my friend Rui, the luthier who built this amazing guitar, that I kind of wanted to copy the specs, not only when it came to neck shape and string spacing, but even the style of pickups that are on this guitar, to be as close as possible as the ones in this one, I kind of have to be honest with you, and this is not me trying to sell you bullshit, this guitar, through the same presets that that guitar went over, sounds way clearer, more defined. And kind of has this more organic, woody sound quality to it, which definitely has to do with a bunch of different factors, but we'll leave that for the review and demo. But yeah, honestly, I just think it sounds super cool. It looks really cool, even though I know that's kind of a subjective thing. And while there are some things that, I mean, honestly, all guitar players do that we think we could improve or do different for a next guitar like this, I think we really achieved something special here. So expect a lot more from this guitar from here on out. And as I said before, a demo/review of this guitar is going to be coming soon. But let me know what you think, not only when it comes to this guitar, but the song as well. Let me know if there's an instrument that you've been looking for a couple of years that you still haven't been able to get or find, and the sort of things that you're working on guitar right now, and maybe the sort of things that you'd be working on if you had that new piece of gear that you've been lusting for a while. And I am asking those questions honestly, so let me know. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even consider sharing them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, anywhere you listen to your music at. And I want to once again take the time to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. With that being said, I hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! Usually the videos where I'm playing or I do these little playthrough clips out of my songs, they have way more views than the videos where I'm just talking and explaining stuff. But I think it's cool to share these stories and tips and tricks when it comes to the songwriting process, because in some ways that's kind of the content that I wish I had when I was growing up. Sure, you could find a bunch of videos of guitar players explaining how to play their solos and songs, and while it's really cool that they explain how to play the songs, I'd say in general I was and still kind of am more interested in why and how they did those things rather than how to do them. And it is sometimes with examples of that you actually get inspired to do some of your own stuff. Like when it comes to my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, which if you haven't, you can should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. There's a more spacey and almost vibey intro section to the song that originally wasn't really there. The song was just going to either start with the main riff or maybe the chords of the main riff, which is played in a more drony way, and have it build up somehow. But around the time of the holidays back in 2024, I was actually watching this video, which was kind of old by then and even older by now, of Jacob Collier doing this masterclass where he was going through the logic session of his song The Little Blue. And when he was breaking down his process and all the little tracks that made up the song, especially the intro, I can't tell you how inspired I was to do something like that. I didn't really want to copy the melodies and riffs or even the vibes and instruments that he used, but the feeling that that intro gave me, I kind of wanted to do the same thing. I kind of wanted to figure out something that would give me that same feeling. It actually happened to be around the time where I was still working on Harkening Back To Us, so I took all the tracks and just moved them up a little bit and grabbed this patch with a lot of delay and reverb and just started to experiment. I then looked at some of the chord progressions of the song and tried to figure out something that kind of worked around it so that there was some sort of cohesion, thematic relationship between this intro that originally wasn't part of the song and the actual song. And as I kept working on it, I started to figure out some cool stuff, but I then started thinking to myself, is this really what I should be doing with this song? Isn't it going to feel like it comes a little bit out of nowhere? But then I thought about it this way, which kind of sounds like I was just trying to gaslight myself into convincing me to keep this intro on, but trust me, there is a thought process behind it. This song that was written specifically for this guitar is kind of supposed to symbolize a transition between the old songs that I did anywhere to 5 to 8 years ago that really built up these Brett Baker demos into this new style of guitar playing that I've been trying to practice and good at, so I then can compose and express myself much better in that genre and style of guitar playing. And through that lens, having this intro that sounds a little bit different but then leads you to something that, even though it's still different, somehow is familiar, kind of mimicked my journey a little bit. And even if it isn't as perfect and polished as I've tried to make my songs and riffs be over the years, it also still represents the me right now because I'm experimenting with new stuff and I'm trying to do something different that I'm just honestly not quite as good at as the other style of guitar playings that I do, which I guess you can just call poetic and philosophic mumbo jumbo, and honestly I get it, but it just felt really appropriate to me. If you haven't checked out the song Little Blue by Jacob Collier, I highly suggest you do, and here's a little clip of the intro that I'm talking about. But like how I usually say with these sorts of things, it makes way more sense in the context of listening through to the whole song, because you can really hear those themes develop and really mash in and blend into each other. What about you? Have you been experimenting with new stuff when it comes to your instrument, or even your songwriting or producing? And if so, what are some of the things you've been working on? I'm honestly curious, so let me know. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and on all the notifications. Follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you've enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, anywhere you listen to your music at. And I want to once again take the time to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. With that being said, I hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! There have been plenty of times where I've talked about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You can go check out some of my videos where I've talked about how Miss Marvel actually influenced my song Triangulate. I also made my own version for the theme of the Secret Invasion show, and we're not going to go through all, but here's a new example when it comes to my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, which, if you haven't, you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a huge nerd, and I usually try to catch up with all the Marvel and Star Wars shows as they come out, because otherwise I kinda get spoiled for what happens on social media, which on one hand is on me, because I do watch that sort of nerd and pop culture content on my feeds. But back in September, when the Agatha All Along show came out, I can't say I was super excited to see it, because I didn't really care that much for that character. Sure, she was cool in the WandaVision show, and of course Kathryn Hahn is a great actress, but I just never really cared that much that they were doing a show. Since I've read a lot of comics, I had been following the theories and trying to figure out which character each actor would play. I was intending to watch it like I do with most Marvel shows, but I happened to not be at home at the time. I was actually visiting some family in California. Shout out to the family if they're watching this. So I wasn't exactly making up time to watch the Agatha show because I was traveling and I could probably watch it when I came back. And to be honest, I kind of forgot that the show was going to be coming out around that time. And by honest sheer coincidence, I actually went to check out this Star Wars and nerd-themed bar down at Hollywood Boulevard called the Scum and Villainy Canteen. I've been wanting to go to that place for years because that's where sometimes Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin do their Fat Man Beyond podcast. So I always thought to myself, if I end up going to California, I kind of want to go check out JC's bar. Me and my family were tired after a big day of sightseeing, so we just stopped at the bar and had some drinks. And while we were just relaxing, they were actually showcasing the first episode of Agatha All Along, which had come out just a couple of hours before. So I kind of watched like the first 10 to 15 minutes of that first episode, but then we left to keep on with our travels. And the show seemed kind of cool, but I never really thought much about it until I came back a couple of weeks later and decided to then catch up with the show. And I thought the show was kind of intriguing and somewhat fun, but it definitely wasn't on my list of top shows that Marvel has ever made. And by then, I already had this guitar with me for a couple of weeks, but because of all the traveling and work I had at the time, I just didn't really have that much time to play. But I knew I wanted to do a cool-ass song to feature this song in, and I was kind of fishing out for riffs and ideas. And even though I was getting a lot of ideas just from the fact of having a new instrument and it being somewhat inspiring, I was still on the lookout for that one riff that would really pop itself out and really surprise me. So a couple of weeks went by, and at the end of October, I actually went to Madrid with my friend Rui, the luthier who built this guitar, which, by the way, there is a little video where I talk about this guitar, which you can go check out, and very soon there will be a full demo/review for you to learn about it. And because we were out there for a couple of days, I didn't really catch up on the show because every time we got back home, I was just tired and wanted to rest. And then when we came back from Madrid, I actually had a bunch of work to do, so I couldn't really make up the time to watch a show that I was just kind of interested in. So on a random Saturday morning, around the beginning of November, I woke up early because I couldn't sleep, so I made myself some breakfast and went to check the show out. And as I was doing it, I actually grabbed this guitar and was just trying to figure some riffs out because I knew I wanted to showcase this guitar with a cool song to finalize the third volume of Brad Baker demos. I've mentioned it in other videos, and I think most guitar players can relate. Even though we should actively practice and make some time to just dedicate ourselves to the guitar, sometimes we're just playing and jamming around while watching a movie or a show, and occasionally a cool idea or riff might actually pop out. And while it didn't happen with the other episodes, it actually did during the finale episodes, because the whole show is about witches and witchcraft, and it ended around Halloween time. I was just messing around with these parallel minor chords because I kind of felt like they matched the vibe of the show, and I ended up figuring out this main riff, to which I then stopped the show immediately and recorded it in my phone in case I would forget about it, which turned out to be a little bit unnecessary because after I did so, all the other riffs of the song kind of just started pouring in. I then recorded all those riffs in my phone when I'd reached the dry point where just no more ideas were coming out, and I went back to the show, and turns out the show was actually pretty good. I know that people feel that it's kind of weird to say that a show only becomes good in the last couple of episodes, but in this case it was different. It's like the show was good, but it wasn't anything crazy. But then in the last episodes, they show you some stuff that actually reworks the whole show and gives you a completely different perspective if you watch the show again. Or even if you don't watch the show again, you think back on all the scenes and they just get a completely different meaning. And some of you might actually have figured out that I ended up naming the song Harkening Back To Us because it was influenced by the Agatha Harkness show. And I even typed down Harkening like they write Harkness down. And if you've watched the finale, like the flashback episode, I'm not going to spoil it to you, but I think the title Harkening Back To Us is actually kind of sweet. Oh yeah, and of course the riff sounds like this. Do you play guitar while watching movies and shows? And if so, does it happen to you often that you actually figure out some cool riffs while doing so? Or is it some more of that mechanical practicing part? Are you an MCU fan? And if so, what did you think of the Agatha show? Let me know. While you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even share them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, anywhere you listen to your music at, and I want to once again take the time to thank you guys so much much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys enough, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. And yeah, with that being said, I hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I think I've mentioned before that I really like that more Byzantine scale, Phrygian dominant, double harmonic major scale sound. It just has these Arabic, Spanish-y flamenco vibes that I've always gravitated towards too. Even when I was a kid and wasn't really a musician, I just thought it kind of sounded cool. I don't know, maybe it's because even when I was a kid, I was very much into Greek and Egyptian mythology, and when I started out playing, I really tried to look for how I could do those sounds. Not only when it came to scales and arpeggios, but even with riffs, melodies, and chord progressions. And while there have for sure been some riffs and melodies here and there that kind of have that more Arabic vibe, I wouldn't really say that those would be the best representation of what I feel like a melody with those Arabic-ish and Spanish vibes would be. And it had been in the back burner on my brain of something that I should do one day, but for one reason or another, it just never came to be. Until it came to my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, which you can and should go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. I wouldn't really say the whole song has Arabic vibes, but while working on the song, I had a bunch of riffs laid down, but I kind of wanted to have a strong melody for the chorus section. And I was just doing some random day-to-day activity, and the melody came into my head, and I started singing it, and thought to myself, this melody actually has a very cool Egyptian-ish vibe. Let me just record it onto my phone. It was a very simple and short melody, nothing really much to it, but because the song I was working on didn't have those Spanish-y vibes, I didn't really think of using that melody in that song, so it just stayed on my phone as a future melody to one day use. But for the next couple of days, that melody would just kick itself back into my head with no real reason. I would be doing the most random things like doing the dishes or driving around, and that melody would then surface like, hey, I'm still here in case you forgot about me. And it became even stronger when I started working on the song again. That's when I thought to myself, okay, this doesn't really happen too often, so could it be some sort of a sign, like maybe my subconscious is talking to me and telling me like, hey, just stop whatever you're doing and try to use this melody in the context of that song, just do it. So I did, kind of reluctantly, not gonna lie, and organized the previous riffs that I had been working on, and then just pasted that melody after those riffs, and surprise, surprise, it actually sounded pretty cool. Kind of gave the song a little bit more of a hopeful vibe because the other riffs are kind of darker and mysterious, which ended up being a cool contrast between the two different parts that actually sounded pretty cool. Every time I was singing the melody though, I was singing it in D and the song is in E flat, so I kind of had to raise it a little bit. And if I'm going to be honest, I kind of feel like just the melody sounds cooler in D while the other riffs sounded cooler in E flat, and it didn't really feel cool to have a chorus that was just half a step down from all the other parts, even if I could find a cool way to modulate into it. But yeah, I ended up with this cool section with a melody that does have those cool Arabic-ish and Spanish vibes, even if I haven't so far done a whole song around it, but maybe one day I will. But until then, in case it wasn't obvious, I guess you can just go check out my latest release song, Harkening Back To Us, anywhere you listen to your music at, and let me know if you too enjoy this sort of sound, and if you use it often, or if it's mostly one of those things that you kind of throw into your playing or your compositions to add a little bit of extra spice. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you've enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll like the other ones too, so perhaps even consider sharing them with a friend who might also enjoy them. I'm going to once again take the opportunity to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. And yeah, with that being said, I hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I wouldn't really call myself a metal musician, but I'm definitely metal inspired. I've mentioned before, trying to not sound pretentious, that my songs in Brad Baker demos are kind of this progressive, symphonic, instrumental rock music, but in a bunch of songs there are for sure some metal-y bits here and there, with the occasion more metal-oriented song. But even with those songs that really aren't that heavy, I kinda like to have these pseudo-breakdown-ish sections, and one thing that I love in metal music, especially in some of those more crazy genres, is how sometimes they would take this riff and slow it down, and it would actually become heavier. In some ways, it's kind of like this Yngwie Malmsteen mentality of like, more is more. If you have this aggressive riff that is kind of fast, if you want to make it more aggressive, then just make it faster and more extreme. But that doesn't have to be the way you do it. And though I've enjoyed that concept for years, it didn't really find its way into any of my songs, not for any specific reason. I guess they just really weren't calling for it, or maybe the riff that I was doing just didn't happen to match that vibe, until the time where I was figuring out my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, which if you haven't, you can ensure go check out anywhere you listen to your music at. The main riff of that song features some parallel minor chords, but that main riff is much more chordal and trying to have its melody that weaves itself in between chords, which doesn't exactly sound very breakdownish. So I then did the arpeggio of those chords and kind of noticed that there was a vibe in there. So I then tried all these different variations and tried to build upon it, and came to this point where I just knew that I could explode with it. And while at first my instinct was, like I mentioned before, in a more is more fashion to just play it in a further aggressive and maybe faster way, because we're playing these lower notes, we could indeed try that more caveman and doomish idea, which ended up sounding like this. I'm sure metal musicians do this often, but like I mentioned before, I don't really compose within the metal genre too often, so it was cool to scratch off this idea out of the list of things that I've been wanting to do for a long time. But what about you? Do you do this sort of thing, where you play a riff, build it up, and then bring it back but slower and nastier? Let me know. And while you're at it, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow and stay tuned for more, because I'm releasing new songs every week, and I'm releasing new videos every day, twice a day. If you've been enjoying these ones, I'm sure you like the other ones too, so perhaps even consider sharing them with a friend who might also enjoy them. In case it wasn't obvious already, go check out my latest released song, Harkening Back To Us, anywhere you listen to your music at, and I want to take the time to thank you guys so much for all the support in these songs and videos. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. With that being said, I can only hope to see you in another video, but until then, cheers! I released a song called Harkening Back To Us, which if you haven't, you can ensure to go check out anywhere listen to your music at, and along with it I've released a bunch of videos not only sharing some stories and tips and tricks along with lessons, but even some playthrough clips and a full playthrough / music video which you can go check out on my YouTube channel. This is a special song that is the last song on Brad Baker Demos Volume 3, and it has honestly been such a surreal experience because all of your support in these songs and videos has just been amazing. I really didn't expect it. I can only thank you guys so much, but it really means a lot and it really makes a difference. It made all the hard work worth it in the last year. So if you've enjoyed any of the videos, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other ones too, so perhaps even consider sharing them with a friend who might also enjoy them. And I hope you not only stay tuned for more, but leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications, follow, and until we see each other in another video, cheers!